Hi, we're Group 5, and our report is on character identification. So, first, our introduction. We want to find out if character identification is completely arbitrary or if media consumers genuinely do experience connection with fictional characters and experience attitude changes when exposed to fictional characters similar to them. We will cover theories like identification theory and the affective disposition theory, as well as other research that covers character identification and the paradox of fiction. So, what do these mean? Identification is a person's sense of identity with someone or something. And arbitrariness is the trait of acting unpredictably or more from whim or caprice than from reason or judgment. So, our theories first is the identification theory. Identification theory is a process that culminates in a cognitive and emotional state in which the audience member is aware not of themselves as an audience member, but rather imagines being one of the characters in the media. Affective disposition theory seeks to understand and explain how individuals' emotional dispositions influence their thoughts, behaviors, and overall experiences. It mainly focuses on one's reactions to various media narratives, says that a person's enjoyment will be positive when disliked characters experience negative ones. And empathy, according to Zillman, it is an understanding of the constraints and living conditions of another leads to sympathy for them. It's basically saying we place ourselves in other situations as if it is happening to us and that emotions are infectious.
So now I'll be talking about the literature review one. So first, Does a Paradox of Fiction Exist by Tolman and Buckwater in 2013. So they ask, do emotions play an important role in understanding how people are connected to fictional characters, such as if they dislike them or like them? And they talk about an original theory proposed by Radford that some emotional responses to fiction count as genuine emotions. We don't believe that objects of those genuine emotions, the fictional entities, and that we are only rationally moved by what we believe actually exists. Also, they talk about how many modern theorists disagree with this take on the theory and prefer another, which is we humans create make believe scenarios within the context of a form of media. If we assign purpose to an object or character, we can then create a connection that is not so easily turned off and on in terms of emotions. And lastly, we cannot simply say that this paradox of fiction does not exist due to natural human emotions. So basically, this literature is talking about how humans have a connection to emotional characters, and that we cannot just turn them off just because we find these emotions ingenuine or not, just because these characters are fictional. Is that we see these characters as like us, and that then creates us to have a connection to them, either emotionally or morally. And then I'm going to talk about the second literature review, which is towards understanding the process of identification with fictional characters, the interplay of positive affect, demographic similarity, and personality similarity by Wong in 2008. And this study draws connections between character identification and audience demographics and personalities. And this literature asks, does character identification rely on relatability? And so here's a quote from the literature. There are greater rates of identification when a person's race, gender, and age matches with a character. Also, according to media psychology theorists, identification is emphasized as an imaginative process in which an individual adopts a character's point of view and develops an empathetic understanding of his or her plight, perspective, motivations, and goals. The study concludes that there is a strong connection between demographics and identification with fictional characters. So, this literature is explaining that one's personal background and judgments and morals and where they come from play an important role on if they connect with a character or not. And so this is subjective. So if one, let's say I'm a woman and there's a male character in the movie that I'm watching, I may or may not relate to them. Most likely not, because I'm a woman and I'm more likely to connect to a character just because they're a woman. And that could be said for, according to this literature, to anyone. It's more likely that they'll connect to a character if they can relate to them.
For our third literature review, I use the paper character identification is predicted by narrative transportation, immersive tendencies, and inner interactivity. Was wrote in 2022 by Fellenhofer. Some key notes are as follows. This study explores how character identification forms through emotional and mental engagement with a story. Does feeling in the story make us feel more like the character? Narrative transportation is how immerse someone feels, and that was the strongest predictor of character identification. Immersive tendencies and interactivity, which are such as being able to choose how the story plays out, also increases identification with said character. Participants connected deeper to characters when they happen to share emotional similarities, not just age, gender, or race. The more people felt emotionally and mentally in the story, the more they could personally identify with the characters. This study also supports the idea that identification is not just random, but is shaped by how deeply the viewer engages with said media. For the last bullet point, emotional interactive interaction drives the bond between viewers and characters, not just face level traits. Our research question is as follows. Is character identification arbitrary, or do media consumers genuinely experience connection with fictional characters and experience attitude changes when exposed to fictional characters similar to themselves? Our hypothesis is as follows as well. Identification and connection with fictional characters is not arbitrary. Humans see others that are similar to them as comfort and community. And like we do with our friends, we can comfort ourselves and ideals to be similar to those we identify with. Furthermore, our variables in this paper are as followed. Independent variable, one self-reported personality traits and psychographics. Our dependent variable is the characters they are exposed to and identify with.
Our research explores how media impacts emotional connections and personal identity. People from a specific demographic will watch a TV show that reflects their age group. After viewing, they will complete a survey reflecting on their emotional reactions, character connections, and feelings of self-identification. The study focuses on capturing deeper emotional impacts like validation, aspiration, discomfort, and nostalgia, rather than just surface-level trends. By analyzing these responses, we aim to identify patterns in how media influences self-perception, social identity, and emotional growth. Ultimately, this research highlights the importance of representation and how fictional stories can deeply shape real-world identities. In conclusion, emotional connections to fictional characters are real and valid reflections of human experience. Our study aims to show that media shapes how individuals understand themselves and the world. By focusing on emotional responses, demographic similarities, and personality connections, we can better understand the impact fictional characters have on real-world identities. These connections, built through empathy, recognition, and reflection, show that characters people relate to are not just figments of imagination, but extensions of their lived experiences. This research proves that emotional bonds with fictional characters are meaningful, measurable, and an important part of self-navigation.